The Mega Man series and I have a rough history together. That history being, I suck at 2D platforming games and really want to like them. Perhaps it's because I grew up more playing 3D games than 2D games, and my habit of overcorrecting my jumps in 3D games is translated to 2D games as well. Either way, seeing as a large number of Mega Man games involve 2D platforming, I feared that I would never really have a Mega Man game that I'd truly be good at. But then Mega Man Legends ended up coming to my life early on. As a child, I was gifted Mega Man Legends thanks to my parents, who allowed me to pick out one game with my new PS1 back in 2000. At the time, I could not think of any other game to get besides Crash Bandicoot, but since those were sold out, I let my parents choose which game for me to get. And this would be a choice that I definitely wouldn't regret, as they picked out Mega Man Legends due to the age rating and the bright colors associated with it on the cover. Surely enough, after playing the game, I was hooked within the first half an hour, and as time has progressed, my love of the Mega Man Legends series has only grown with each passing year, as evidenced by how often I've covered this game and series for my channel. Mega Man Legends was released for the PlayStation in late 1997 for Japan and late 1998 for the United States and Europe. Created and developed by Capcom Production Studio 2, the studio known later for creating the Mega Man Battle Network series for the Game Boy Advance, Mega Man Legends was the Blue Bomber's first chance to jump into 3D. Something he doesn't really do too often to this day, and when he does, it doesn't really turn out too well. Series producer Keiji Inafune stated in an interview that he wanted to create a whole new type of experience with Mega Man when designing the Legend series, wanting primarily to create an experience that was fun for people of all ages to play, and to take the Mega Man series to new heights, and I will say that the Legend series succeeded in some of those aspects. While the Legend series was released to average reviews and middling praise, the game oozes with charm, and has way more personality than both the X series and Classic series do in my eyes. The charm is also present within the story and helps create a more memorable experience when looking back at Mega Man Legends' story as a whole.
Look! It's almost time for my favorite show! I almost missed it!
The story begins with our main protagonist, Mega Man Walnut, exploring an ancient mechanical ruin for treasure with the help of his navigator and stepsister, Roll. After narrowly escaping the ruins and flying away on their airship, the Flutter, Mega Man, Roll, and their grandfather Barrel begin to have engine problems and are forced to crash land on the nearby island of Cadillacs. After crash landing and getting visited by the police to see if there are any injuries, the family alongside Mega Man's monkey, Data, are stranded on Cadillacs and must find a way to make repairs to the Flutter so that they may continue on their quest to find Roll's missing parents as well as the world's most elusive treasure, the Mother Lode. However, not long after crash landing on Cadillacs, Mega Man and his family get caught up in the city's problems with the notorious air pirate family known as the Bonds. The Bonds plan on attacking Cadillacs Island and its inhabitants in order to find the legendary treasure said to be buried on Cadillacs by forcing the mayor to give the Bond family the keys to the island's multiple ruins. Upon dealing with the Bond schemes, Mega Man instead is given the keys in order to try and dissuade the pirates, and becomes more intertwined with Cadillacs' legendary treasure, as well as the disaster that is said to occur if the treasure is ever unearthed. But the Bond family aren't the only antagonists of the game, and while I won't go into detail about this character, in particular due to spoilers for the finale of the game, I will say that this character shifts the tone of the entire game dramatically to the point to where I believe it sours the game as a whole. Lore-wise, for the Legend series, it makes sense as to why they needed to introduce this character, but honestly, the writer should have found a way to weave them more into the story so that they don't just come off as jarring and just appear out of nowhere. Overall, the story is serviceable, but with the amount of charm placed within the setting of Cadillacs Island, as well as the characters within the game, I will say that the presentation of Mega Man Legends is definitely better than that of the Classic or X series. Although, I will admit that I have a lot of bias in that, for one, with Legends being one of my earliest Mega Man games to play, and at the same time, I'm not saying that Mega Man Legends has the best story of a Mega Man game, as I believe that goes the Zero series for the Game Boy Advance. Even then, the presentation of Mega Man Legends is pretty good, especially by 5th generation console standards for games that weren't JRPG. I just really wish the game kept a consistent tone throughout the whole adventure, or managed to weave in the Legends lore a bit better, considering that the last 30 minutes of the game always sour it for me. So, while the story itself has only really one sour note to speak of in my eyes, how does the gameplay stack up? Oftentimes, games during the 5th generation age horribly in the gameplay department, or in controls given the transition to 3D. So, does Mega Man Legends follow that trend as well? Let's take a look, shall we? Classic and X series Mega Man games were always characterized by these three traits: Choose a Robot Master or Maverick to fight, play their stage with unique platforming challenges for each of those Robot Masters, and defeat the boss at the end of the level to gain new weapons or new abilities to use in later stages. Come to the Legends series, and those traits have all been pretty much thrown out the window. Using a mixed style of light RPG mechanics with adventure game elements in an open world, and you're in for a different type of Mega Man. Graphically, the game is very expressive. The main characters have very expressive facial textures unique to each character, and looks nice on the models themselves. It's still something that's really amazing to think about even to this day how good these facial textures look, considering this was a late 1997 game original. Even the environmental textures look really nice and are very vibrant in color, if one can handle the frequent clipping that occurs within the environment or inside the ruins. As for Mega Man himself, he's rocking a slew of changes as well. To start with, Mega Man himself cannot change special weapons whenever he wants to now. If given access to all the special weapons at once, it would probably make an already easy adventure a little bit too easy. At least that's my justification as to why the developers probably wanted you to return to roll, besides crafting new items and enhancing current special weapons that you've already crafted. A difference, though, is that the special weapon Volnut has can also be used in conjunction with the Buster Gun, which is always equipped, except in civilian areas, and can be upgraded with Buster parts at any time in the main menu. There are a ton of special weapons to craft with roll in the game, way more than the classic and X-Series games had within just one of their games. Certain parts are necessary to create special weapons and other Buster parts, and can be found around the island by doing many different side quests or exploring the ruins on Cadillacs Island. For dungeons on Cadillacs, there are a few optional ruins scattered on the island, with plot-important ruins being more obvious than others. Defending these ruins are its guardians, the Reaverbots. There are multiple varieties of Reaverbots in the game, with some boss Reaverbots sprinkled in as well to keep the interconnected ruins of Cadillacs Island more interesting. Reaverbots are also the main source of money within the Legend series, Zenny. Whenever a Reaverbot is destroyed, multiple different colored diamonds spew out of them, and these diamonds are Zenny. Sometimes health will also spawn out of them, represented by orange cubes. Zenny is used for multiple things in Mega Man Legends, such as upgrades for your weapons from roll, items from the junk store, and to pay for repairs inflicted on the city from the battle with the bombs. What can be annoying with Zenny though, besides the fact that it disappears within a few seconds, maybe 5 to 7 seconds max, are that later weapon upgrades can be expensive, with Zenny payouts from enemies generally going up slowly throughout the course of the game. You'll have to destroy an army's worth of Reaverbots to get enough money to even come close to buying some of the weapon upgrades in the game, energy canteen refills and expansions, and much needed armor upgrades from the junk store. The other inhabitants of the island, including Mega Man's family, also provide interesting side quests and dialogue for the player to discover. Most side quests lead to more weapon upgrade parts or junk parts, which is nice, and there is really only one main side quest that I don't like, the bomb defusal one from the police station, but all others are interesting, with something changing the island as a whole throughout the entire game. You can do these side quests whenever you want, as nothing is ever locked out based on time in the game, an aspect I greatly appreciate in an adventure game such as this, where time-based lockouts would be common really until you go past the point of no return. You always have a chance to do them. Now, an aspect of the game that has not aged well to many is the use of tank controls for Mega Man himself. Mega Man can only go in one direction, and the player must use the L1 or R1 button to rotate Mega Man himself. This leads the game to feel a bit stiff in the control department. But one thing to keep in mind is that Mega Man Legends was released in 1997 originally, long before the DualShock analog controller was made, so the design for tank controls doesn't seem too unreasonable. However, one major criticism I shall give the controls is in the form of the lock-on function, which has Mega Man fire his buster or special weapon at a single enemy at a time by holding the R2 button. I majorly hate about the design in Legends 1 for the lock-on function is the fact that Mega Man himself cannot move while locked on and holding the R2 button, and must disengage the lock-on before being able to move around. In a fast-paced environment where you need to dodge attacks, this can be very detrimental, and is why I don't use the main lock-on function for most of the game unless I absolutely have to. There is a soft lock-on function that the game does automatically once you get close enough to enemies, with Mega Man curving his shots, but if an enemy has multiple targeting spots, this can end up getting muddled, and sometimes you'll hit the invincible part of the Reaverbot or boss instead of the actual weak part. Overall, Mega Man's first foray into 3D, the gameplay works rather well for the style of game, and the responsive controls, even if clunky at times, combined with the active setting of Cadillacs Island, helps the player feel immersed while on the island. But one other standout feature of Mega Man Legends has yet to be mentioned, and that is its sound design. Right upon booting up Mega Man Legends, the player is greeted with a scrolling text wall fully voiced to set the world setting for the Mega Man Legends series. Benefiting from the added space that a CD-ROM provided, Mega Man Legends was given a full voice acting treatment once more after Mega Man 8. Oh god, it's gonna be bad. But the thing is, it actually isn't. While Capcom had many examples of 90s bad voice acting, be it from Mega Man X4, Mega Man 8, or Resident Evil 1, Mega Man Legends voice acting is very well put together, and the delivery isn't as bad as other games I had mentioned. Capcom really put a lot more effort into the voice direction of Mega Man Legends after probably hearing the reception of games such as Mega Man 8 and Resident Evil 1 from the previous year. Didn't help Mega Man X4 though, which came out earlier in the year.
There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
Music, on the other hand, is something that I think the Legends series isn't really strong for. Legends 1 in particular in this regard. For the Legends series, composer Makoto Tomozawa would lead sound design and musical arrangements. While none of the tracks are bad in Legends 1, they are rather underwhelming compared to some of his work in Mega Man 7 as well as some of his work in Resident Evil 1. With really the most famous track coming out of Legends 1 being the Flutter vs. Gesellschaft battle theme that would be used for Tron Bonne in the Marvel vs. Capcom series as Tron Bonne's theme. While the music is rather lackluster in my eyes, I won't say the same for the sound effects within Mega Man Legends, all of which have a crisp PlayStation quality sound to them. Explosions have a great impact in sound as though they have some weight put into them, with explosions further away sounding lower than nearby explosions. Buster shots sound great to fire, be they in short bursts or in rapid streams, and the voice balancing throughout most of the game is generally well done, with again only one or two main issues popping up. Overall, the great vocal performances with crisp audio sound effects and a slightly underwhelming soundtrack give Mega Man Legends a decent audio experience. Mega Man Legends remains a game that did take Mega Man to new heights in some regards, but also managed to remain the same in others for the series. With a decent presentation and charming and memorable characters, Mega Man Legends cemented itself as a nice side series for the Blue Bomber, introducing a new world setting far removed from the classic series and slightly removed from the X series helped in some aspects. But the need to lore dump at the end of the game resulted in more of a soured experience near the end, and is something that I'll get more into with the eventual Mega Man Legends 2 review. Should you experience Mega Man Legends for yourself though? I think if acquired at the right price, it wouldn't be a bad time sink at all. Luckily, Mega Man Legends has numerous ports since its launch, and given the resurgence of Mega Man within the last 2 years, I wouldn't doubt more ports, or possibly even a Legends collection. Although, if Legends were to get a collection, I definitely see it as being one of the last Mega Man compilations that would come out, given to how few games there are in the series when compared to that of, say, Battle Network, which can be bundled with Star Force, just like how the Zero series was bundled with ZX and ZX Advent recently. To go through a list of ports, we have the Mega Man 64 port for the N64, the Japanese-only PSP port with controls optimized for the PSP in mind, and the PSN port, which can be played on a PlayStation 3, Vita, or PSP. Finally, there is the rare PC port that can almost be as pricey as a PS1 original copy at times due to the fact that this version of the game runs at a higher resolution than the game natively runs on in every other version. There are problems with each port though. PSP having a bit crunched music, N64 having highly compressed audio given the cartridge size, PC having worse audio quality than PlayStation 1, and the PSN copies having emulation issues on the Vita if boosting loading speeds, with PSP digital versions not having the Japanese exclusives optimized controls. If I were to choose one that should be played, I will always say the PS1 original. But PSN isn't a bad second choice, and this version often goes on sale for dirt cheap, which is an added bonus. So, with all those ports in mind, play Mega Man Legends for yourself and see a game that managed to capture the focus of many people back in the 90s. Maybe one day the series will get a conclusion, but until then, this has been Neronium, and I'll see you all next time.